Well, Marianne, thank you so much for being here with me on the Entrepreneurial Success Podcast. I am thrilled to have this conversation with you, only because you and I have known each other for quite some time and can't believe after all these years, we're actually now doing a podcast interview. Before we get started, why don't I hand over to you so you can introduce yourself to the audience and tell us what you do?
Thanks. Yes, so I've been in branding and design for 25, actually nearly 30 years now. And the journey started where I grew up in Switzerland. And I spent a lot of time playing in nature and spending time in the woods. And I was always fascinated by the shapes and colors and textures around me. This then led me years on to study graphic design. And once I'd completed my degree in Switzerland, I had this dream of working and living in London. So I arrived in London in 94 with my portfolio under my arm. And this was the beginning of a great journey and adventure. I freelanced in many different companies and gained a great breadth of experience working on various projects, from the intercontinental hotels to insurance companies and the Royal Academy of Arts, a really broad spectrum. And for as long as I was working in branding and design, I also had a real interest in the mind, body, spirit, and how what we surround ourselves with affects how we feel. And that sort of led me to study energy healing and also Buddhism. So really how the interior reflects itself in the exterior and how everything is really connected. So, and I was fascinated about how we can enter a space and feel absolutely amazing. We can also enter another space and feel really uncomfortable and not necessarily know why. And besides the tangible things that we can see, the objects, the colors, the plants, there's something beyond that we can't see, but that's really tangible. But logically, we can't quite describe it. And that the energy of a space and of a place, I realized, is also very much present in everything that we have around us, and obviously in a brand. So I got really interested in how can we describe or how can we communicate the energy of something through a design.
I know. And I love that because as you're sharing that, it makes me think, oh my gosh, that's why we get drawn to certain places. And that's why we love certain atmospheres. But equally for us as business owners, I've never come across this where we kind of think about this when people come to us, to our website, to experience who we are. We also have to create that kind of space and have that energy so people feel welcome. People feel this is nice. And I haven't thought about it in so many ways. I think some of us do it very naturally, but to consciously be aware of that, but so much more in our branding, that's the thing that I haven't thought about as much, which is why I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. And oh my gosh, growing up in Switzerland, I mean, who would want to grow up in Switzerland? Surrounded by those beautiful forests all the time, I can just imagine. So I can see where some of your inspiration has come from over many, many years. So let's talk about this a little bit. Let's talk about branding and energy. From your perspective, why do you feel that we should have our brands aligned with us? Why is that so important?
I love this question because it makes me think of, imagine wearing a pair of shoes that's too big or too tight. So when our brand isn't aligned with us or isn't aligned with our values, it's like wearing a pair of shoes that's too tight or that's too wide. It doesn't fit. It makes us feel uncomfortable. Our communication doesn't flow. It just feels awkward. Or imagine being a vegetarian and working at a butcher's. It's it's a misalignment. So we all have a unique energetic imprint. It's a bit like a fingerprint, where none of us are the same, even if there's, thousands of coaches, there's thousands of designers. Each of us have a unique approach, and being able to communicate this to our audience is really key. And yes, our energetic imprint can be translated through colors, through shapes, through images, and through whether it's a very spacious website. For example, if we take that as an example of an application, or if it's a very minimalist website, or a very full but very colorful website, the energy, well, each color and each shape has an energy. So it becomes like a kaleidoscope. When you're clear on the message that you want to communicate, and it's like the imprint that you want to make on your audience and how you want to make them feel and what you'd like them to think. These are, you can think of your website like a person. When you walk into a room, how do you want people to experience this person, which is your website? And what do you want them to do? Would you like them to interact with it, or do you just want them to be sort of passive? Is there an action you want them to take, or is it much more of a self-guided journey? And yes, what's the key message that you want to leave your audience with?
Yeah. And I love one of the things you said there is that we're all so unique. There could be hundreds of other people doing the exact same thing you're doing, but because their energy is different, because they're different from you, just like our fingerprints are different, your business is different. So I think that kind of just takes the pressure off us a little bit as well, to kind of think about, oh my gosh, the competition has done this, their brand is like this, I need to stand out from their brand, how do I do that? I think this is the beauty of what it is that you're sharing, because once our brand is aligned with us, of who we are, immediately we take that pressure off. Like, I don't need to worry about the competition, this is me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, how do I want people to experience me, to experience my brand? And by the way, for those of you listening, when we talk about brand, we're not just talking about your website.
No.
I know obviously that's what most people think about, but your brand is so much more than your website. It's about so many other facets of how you come through. And I think this is why I love having this conversation with you, Marianne, because there's so many different things of what we need to think about when we are creating a brand that is aligned with you. But just like we said in the beginning, how do you want other people to experience it? So I'm sorry, I'm saying that numerous times, but I feel I need to get that message across.
Yeah. No, I think most people think of a brand as, a logo and a website. And of course, the logo is like a core element, but a logo alone isn't a brand. It's just a design. Whereas your brand is how people experience you, what your communication is like, how you make them feel. And it's actually, your brand is what people experience of you. So whether they receive an email, whether they receive a newsletter, whether they see a post on social media, whether they go to your website, whether they meet you in person. So it's the sort of physical in-person and online presence that need to communicate in the same way. And it's the whole experience that you leave your audience with. That's your brand. So it's made up of visual and physical things, but also emotional things. And to come back to, to our unique sort of energy and fingerprint, the way to create a brand that's aligned with us, we actually have to go inwards first. And it's like we need to connect with our own deep values. I like to call it, connecting to the heart and soul, because really when our brand reflects our heart and soul, then everything can flow, because then our brand is a representation of what we're here to do and what we're here to represent. And it becomes such a beautiful vehicle that does the work without us being present. But the inner work needs to happen first. So if we don't know what our values are, or if we're not quite clear what we stand for, it's going to be hard to create a brand that is in alignment and that represents our energetic blueprint.
Yeah. And I love what you shared there. And I can only use myself as an example here, because I remember when I started my business, everything was dislocated. It just felt like it was all over the place. And I know for a lot of women who's possibly listening to this or watching this video, who's just in that beginning phase of their business, they might feel the same. It doesn't feel like things are flowing. It feels like things haven't connected yet. There's so many facets that they need to think about, so many elements that needs to connect, but they're not connecting. And I think this is part of that personal growth element about going more into yourself, understanding who you are. And there's nothing wrong with going through that process, because it's part of the journey.
No,
it's
absolutely.
part of discovering who you are. What are your values? What do you stand for? And when I went through that journey, and I will never forget this. It was just one day I recorded myself because I was doing some videos, and I had my whole script written out, and it was right there next to the camera. And I was reading off the script while recording myself. When I look back at the video, everything felt so wrong. It was so misaligned with me. The script, it was just horrible. And then I thought, okay, well, let me kind of get rid of the script and just record myself just talking normally.
Yeah.
And as soon as I did that and I watched the video, I was like, this is it. This is who I need to be, just me.
Yeah. Yes.
I do not need to show up as anybody else. I do not have to be perfect. I do not have to copy what other people are doing. This is it. And I will never forget that day, because that's when everything started falling in place. My brand, how I wanted to show up, how I wanted people to experience my energy. It just started flowing from there.
Yeah. And just like, we change, we grow, we evolve. Yeah. So our brand also grows and evolves, but it grows at the pace that we are evolving and growing. So if we don't do the inner work and the inner work is the foundation of the brand, really. And so for it to be able to grow, the work needs to start on the inside.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know people, the ladies who are watching this, or obviously, listening to the podcast, they would go like, that's me, that's how I'm feeling. So just to let you know, it will come. Give yourselves the time. Be patient. That moment will come where you feel everything is just going to fall into place. And if it doesn't come, maybe go and have a chat with Marianne, because she can help you get into that inner kind of like that inner sanctum of who you truly are and what it is that you want to showcase.
Yeah, there's exercise, and actually whether you are literally just setting up or starting out on your business journey, or whether you've been running a business for a long time and there's the next level of growth, and we all come to crossroads where things are uncomfortable. And I think that's an aspect we need to accept with business, that at times I find hard to accept too, that growth is not comfortable. So whenever we start something new, there's going to be a moment that feels that we don't want to stay in this space. And that's also a good sign, because it's showing us that we're in a growth mode. And at times things aren't clear straight away, but by tuning in, like there's an exercise I take my clients through where we literally tune into the heart, and that gives us a level of information that our mind can't give us. And we need a certain level of patience and action taking to grow and to evolve and to yeah, make our business align with who we truly are.
Yeah. And like you said, there's going to be an ever evolving thing. It's
Yeah.
never, you're never just going to find like, oh, this is my brand, this is it. And it's going to be like that for the rest of your life. It's still going to change, it's going to evolve. So I shared my story earlier. So the way I portray my brand, I'm in love with it. I love the way it is there. But maybe what, 5 years from now, I would completely change. I would have evolved and grown then, and I would be seeking something new that is more aligned with me at that moment in time. So I think this is also the one thing we need to be aware of, that it's never written in stone. There's
No.
always room for evolvement, there's always room for growth. And
Yes.
that is a good sign then when you get uncomfortable, because it means that you're growing.
Yes, that's right. And I mean, if you look at very large brands, you know, the it's good when your logo is an element that feels like you do truly love, and that feels comfortable in the sense that it represents you and it excites you when you look at it. And because this energy of excitement is also transmitted to your clients, you know, when if people still hand out business cards, you know, it's a moment where it's an interaction where you get to see the expression of on another person's face and see whether it resonates with them or not. I know now there's less and less business cards, but it's still an element I love designing, because it's a unique piece that's still tangible, and that gives us an experience which is tactile rather than just everything being virtual and online.
Yeah,
Um,
true.
and yeah, so loving, you know, loving the logo, loving the design that you've got is really key. But over time, if you look at big brands, they do evolve. So you you probably won't change, you know, 360 unless you have a massive event in your life that also makes you see life in a totally new way. But generally, your values, you know, remain, and they evolve, but there'll be an element that, like a red thread or a golden thread, that's always there.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit from your experience. Are there about 3 tips that you can share with the audience here who possibly is now starting a business or rebranding their business because of that growth, but just the 3 things that we kind of need to look out for or need to think of when we are going through this growth phase with our brands?
Yeah, there's there's some again there's some tips that I speak about, or some exercises that you can do that I lay out in my book. But for example, the very first one is to do this inner work and to ask yourself to really define what's unique about you. What are your interests? What are the things that make you uniquely you? And when you can journal about this, you can create a vision board about this, you can create just keywords, whatever, you know, works for you. But defining what makes you stand out. So what's unique about you? It can be your journey, it can be your interests, and it's the combination of these unique threads that will make you uniquely you. And it often there can be things that are, you know, so normal to you that you don't even think about them. So one way to help you clarify those is you can ask either friends or clients to give you a reflection of what they see as a core quality in you. I think that's really helpful in getting to that inner core and to defining these inner values and what's unique.
Yeah.
So that's the first one I would recommend. And the second one is also, you know, who do you love working with? What what is it that you love offering to your clients? So being really clear on the types of clients that you want to work with more, because your brand obviously needs to represent you, but it needs to speak to your clients. So there needs to be a resonance. There needs to be, it's like a recognition. So when your audience sees your brand, they need to know that this is for me, or no, this is not for me. So defining who your ideal clients are is another really core tip at any stage. And you can do this when you're setting out, but also after 6 months or after a year of running a business, and just checking in, are there still the same clients? Is it actually, oh, I really enjoyed working with, this client. I found I've outgrown, maybe there's a certain services you may not want to offer anymore. So defining who your ideal client is another tip.
Yeah. No, very, very valuable. Just already these two, my mind is rushing a little bit on a few things as well. And then what about the final tip?
Well, the final tip is be curious and look around, especially when you're creating your new brand. Look around and see what speaks to you. What is it? Which brands jump out at you, or which brands do you use on a daily basis? And why is that? Because sometimes, again, we're so used to our own environment that we don't see it anymore. And asking ourselves, oh, why do I use this brand of tea? Or why do I use this soap? It can be small things, or it can be, obviously your car or your watch. It can be any element, but ask yourself what it is that you love about those brands that you use on a daily basis. And this will give you information about how you want to portray your brand and which qualities you want to communicate.
Yeah, and I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I think, it's not just about filling out a form. It's not just about quickly putting a few colors together, deciding on a font, quickly getting a logo up. It's not about that. It's about doing the deeper work. And I love what you shared there. Number one, do the deeper work, but ask friends, people who know you, because sometimes they've got an outside perspective that you can't see. And then number two, of course, you have to know who your ideal client is, because it brings it back to what we said in the beginning. If people were to come in a room, or you were to create an atmosphere, how do you want people to experience that atmosphere? But also, you're not just going to get anybody to come into this room and share a space in a moment in time with you. You want the right clients to come. So number two is very valuable. And then last of all is, make sure that whatever you do is right. But right for you, right for your clients. And the key here is you already have that information, because you are buying into other brands. And I think this is what I wanted to share. I couldn't find the words there for a second, but that's what I wanted to say. So you already have that information within you, but seeing where it is that you hang out, or what brands inspire you, gives you already an idea of, where you want to go and what you want to create for your clients.
Yeah, they're good indicators.
Yeah, absolutely. Now tell us a little bit about your book, because I can see it there in the
Yes.
background, but obviously you are the author of Align and Shine. So tell us a little bit about the book, and what was the inspiration for you to write your own book?
Okay, thank you. So yes, Align and Shine, gain an unshakable foundation to build your legacy brand, is the methodology I've created over the past 25 years of working in branding and design. And it's what I take my clients through to create the foundation before we create the design of the brand. So in the book, you have all the questions that I do ask my clients, and writing the book was great because it made me simplify or clarify the different aspects or the things I was doing intuitively with my clients, and putting them into more of a structure. So the core is that it's about joining our logical mind and our intuitive mind. So asking the logical questions which link to our left brain, and then also going into our more heart-based and intuition space, which is our right brain. And so there are questions and exercises to do throughout the book. And by the end, the third part of the book is about joining the left and right brain. So you have this foundation where you can brief a designer or a design agency, and you will give them a good brief where they can really create a brand that is a true reflection of who you are, and not a design that they thought was a great idea. So it's really creating this strong foundation. And I've been told that you can also use it like a life tool, asking yourself questions about where you are in your life in general. So yeah, your brand and your life are intrinsically linked. So your brand is an expression of you and of what you're offering. So it's an evolving journey.
Amazing. And that's great, because I think just from the conversation we were having here today, maybe some of the audience were thinking, oh my gosh, yes, that sounds amazing, but how do I do it? And I think you're literally just offering it here in the form of your book and say, well, here it is. Here's all the things and all the steps that you take your clients through, but now people can do it themselves. And then they can kind of get deeper into what is aligned with them, but then also start creating that brand that maybe they never would have gotten to if they were just, like I said, throw a bunch of colors together and just decide on a font.
That's it. And actually, the motivation was really to offer the structure, because creating a brand can be daunting, and it's of course we each have our skills, and creating a brand on top of running a business is not it's not for everyone. And I came across so many people who were struggling with understanding what their brand was, or really cutting themselves short around what it could really represent. Came across so many clients who said, oh, don't look at my website, I'm not, it doesn't represent me, or I'm not proud of it. And for me, being proud of your design and proud of your brand and proud of your website, like you said, you love your design and you love your website, that is such an important energy to communicate and to to connect with our audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, most of all, realizing that we do not have to go on this journey ourselves. We do not have to try and figure it out ourselves. We can just go get your book, use the steps in there, and then actually you're just going to learn so much more about yourself in the process. Like you say, it's personal, but it's also business. The two are very much interlinked. So for those of you listening, if you want to go and obviously go on this journey without trying to figure it out yourself, if you're rebranding or if you are starting a brand, my suggestion is to go and look at the book Align and Shine. And what I'll do in the show notes, I'll put the link there so you can obviously go and get it. But then also, if you want to take it one step further and you feel it is way too much for you to do on your own, get in contact with Marianne, have a conversation with her, because she might actually be able to guide you and to pull those things out of you that have been cropping up inside and you weren't quite sure how to express it into a brand that is aligned with you. So Marianne's details will be in the show notes, her website, all her social media details will be in there. But more importantly, at least go and try and get the book and see if that will already give you that stepping stone that you were looking for. Oh my gosh, Marianne, thank you so much for just giving so much insight into branding, what it is that we need to look for. Because like I said, I think we look at a lot of things on the surface, but we don't always do the deep dive. And that's what I appreciate about what it is that you're offering. So thank you so much for sharing that here today. And congratulations on the book. Congratulations on everything you've achieved so far. And it's always lovely to connect with you. Thank you for the time being here as well.
Thank you, Henriette. It's been a joy. Thank you.
Oh, look after yourself and we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you.